Now, I've scheduled our webinar for 90 minutes today, and before we begin, let's go over the primary learning objectives that we'll be covering in today's lesson. I put a link in the chat to a PDF class handout if anyone's interested in downloading that or perhaps printing that out. If not, you can just follow along with the agenda slides that I have on screen right now. We'll start from scratch by creating an EndNote library, which is essentially your database of research literature that you'll be gathering and keeping track of with the software. I want to go over the typical components that comprise an EndNote library. Usually a library has two components related to it, a file with an ENL extension and an accompanying data folder with the same name. And again, I'll point those out today after we create our library. I want to talk a little bit about manual reference creation, something that you might not find yourself needing to do very often. There are quite a few options for automated reference capturing, but there are certain types of materials that you just might not be able to find online, or you might be able to find it online, but perhaps on a site that doesn't have an EndNote export option. So again, it's good to know just in case how to manually add a reference. I also want to talk today about the ability to import references from text files as well. We'll touch on this a little bit later when we discuss direct export, but essentially EndNote has the ability to import references in a consistently tagged format. So that means if you can generate a text file where each piece of data is on its own line with an identifying tag in front of it, you could automatically import that data into EndNote library references. So we'll talk a bit about that today. We'll go into detail a little bit like I was describing with a feature called direct export. It's a piece of technology that an information provider can implement on their website, and if they choose to do so after you query their databases, there's typically an option to export selected references to your EndNote library. So today I'd like to show you how to export from the Web of Science and PubMed.gov, just to really highlight the fact that the steps can vary to initiate the export from site to site. But behind the scenes, the same thing happens regardless of the information provider. And again, we're going to actually look at that underlying data format just so that you have an idea of what is happening under the hood when you're importing data into EndNote. I also will be showing quickly a new feature that's been implemented in EndNote. It's another Clarivate solution, formerly known as Copernio, now rebranded as EndNote Click. It's an optional browser extension that can help you locate the best quality version of each journal article that you're interested in, either from an open access published format or using institutional resources. If you're affiliated with a university, you'll probably have subscription to some paid databases, and again, with EndNote Click, you can use your institutional affiliation to access subscription resources as well to quickly download a PDF and an accompanying reference to your EndNote library. And again, we'll see that in action quickly today. I'll show you how you can add an extra level of organization to an EndNote library using what we call groups and group sets. You can think of library groups almost as folders within a binder, let's say, and group sets are sort of the section dividers that you might create for different projects or focus areas in your field of study. There are actually three different types of groups that you can create in addition to group sets. But today we'll be focusing on custom groups. That's the type of group you can manually populate. There are two other formats, like I mentioned, a format called Smart Groups and also Combination Groups. Those are automatically populated by EndNote based on the search that you craft, and we touch on those topics in the advanced level lesson plan. So if you're interested in again, those topics of combination groups and smart groups, you may be interested in reviewing a recent recording of that advanced level webinar. We'll also be looking at today, in addition to adding groups to our sample EndNote library, linking some file attachments. With EndNote, you can link up to 45 files per EndNote library record. Most of the time, users are just linking one single PDF to a particular EndNote library entry, but you've got flexibility with regard to the number of items that you're linking, like I mentioned. And you can really link almost any type of file to an EndNote library record. PDFs, you can actually preview in the EndNote application using a built-in PDF viewer, and you can annotate PDFs within EndNote itself. We'll be talking about that today. But you can link a Word document or perhaps a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. But I did just want to mention that you have to have those applications installed on your computer if you want to open a file other than a PDF using EndNote. If you link a Word document, you have to have Microsoft Word on your system to be able to open that file attachment. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about that in just a little bit. I'll show you how you can use EndNote to automatically capture full text PDFs for you automatically after you've gathered references in your EndNote library. The feature is called Find Full Text. It's one of the power features available in EndNote Desktop. And this too can query open access resources, but also some organizational resources as well. I'll show you how you can customize EndNote's preferences to add an open URL server address or an authentication URL if you're at a university, like I mentioned. And then that way, EndNote can possibly query subscription resources as well when performing a Find Full Text search. If you're the type to actually come across PDFs while you're performing your sort of research discovery and you're saving those PDFs to your hard drive, you can actually import those files directly into an EndNote library. And so long as EndNote's able to find the DOI number for a particular article within the PDF itself, EndNote will automatically create a reference in your library for that publication and attach the PDF at the same time. So that can be a great time saver. It's almost a sort of the flip side to the EndNote click functionality. So again, it really comes into personal preference how you're building your library, and we'll be covering a wide range of options today for automatic reference creation. Like I mentioned, we'll look at how you can annotate a PDF directly in EndNote using the built-in PDF viewer. You can do things like highlight text, strike out text, underline text with the built-in annotation capabilities. You can also add what we call sticky notes, which are, as the sort of name implies, a sort of a digital post-it note that you can add to a page of a PDF. And these sticky notes are searchable, so that if you want to maybe note, a phrase or a term, or maybe a comment for a colleague, and you set up a library sharing team, all of these PDF annotations will sync among an entire library sharing team. So that will give you an extra level of collaboration in that regard to be able to, annotate these attachments and make notes to teammates. And then we'll close out today with a quick overview of the EndNote add-in for Microsoft Word. It's a set of tools that we call the Cite While You Write commands, and you can use these tools to insert citations in research projects. You can also create footnotes and endnotes using Cite While You Write. The footnote and endnote references, we're not really going to be going into detail with that today, but it is possible to do that with Cite While You Write. You can use these Cite While You Write tools to format an accompanying bibliography. And one of the nice time-saving features related to Cite While You Write is that you can switch formats on the fly. So if you're still in the process of determining who you might like to submit your research project to for potential publication, you can quickly apply the formatting guidelines for Journal A by choosing its output style and EndNote. Save that document, print it out if you'd like, and then you can turn around and apply the style for Journal B to that document. And then it will dynamically update the format of your in-text citations and the bibliography as well. So again, that can be a great time saver. There's a lot of power to the Cite While You Write tools, but today we'll be covering what I call the daily driver features for these commands. Now, with that said, we're really going to be performing all of our other actions within the application itself. There is a couple of closing slides that I will come back to at the end of our lesson today, but I'm going to go ahead and get out of slideshow mode here. Okay, we've hit in PowerPoint, and you might notice that I've just got the desktop up for macOS Monterey. We're going to be focusing on Mac today, as the calendar item mentioned. There are some, comparable features between Windows and macOS, and typically your EndNote license can be used to install the software on up to 3 computers at any given time for your own use, Windows or Mac. So if you happen to have access to both platforms, you can typically install your license on both Windows and Mac OS. Now, EndNote doesn't make a shortcut for you on the desktop. Once you install it, of course, it adds a folder to the applications folder. Once EndNote's up and running, if you wanted to, of course, you can right-click on the EndNote icon on your dock, and if you'd like, point your mouse over options. You could choose Keep in Dock so that you have a quick shortcut to the application next time around, quickly launch it. Now, very typical on Mac OS is that you can have an application running with no windows showing, and that behavior is evident by the drop-down menu that you see next to the Apple menu in the top left of your screen. So whichever application is currently active, even if it doesn't have a window showing, will typically display its application-specific drop-down here. So the fact that we see EndNote 20, that means EndNote is our active application. We just don't have a library open. And to get started with EndNote, we either want to create a new EndNote library, we want to open an existing library that we might have created in a previous session, or maybe that a colleague sent to us via email or Dropbox. We could open a shared library, like I mentioned. This is a topic we cover in the expert level lesson plan. But once you set up an EndNote library, you can sync that with EndNote Online, share that library now with up to 400 other EndNote desktop users so that everyone's collaborating on the same set of references for a particular project. But essentially, you just have to have an EndNote library open, and like Ed mentioned, that's your database of references or reference materials that you're keeping track of with EndNote. Today, we're going to get started from square one by creating a new EndNote library. So to do that, here on the the drop-down menu that we see across the top of the screen, we're going to go to the File drop-down menu where we have the New command. That's what we'll click on first here. We'll click New. This will start the process of creating a new reference library, as we see in the title bar here. I'm going to go ahead and expand this window just so that we have a little bit of breathing room in terms of the panels that we're seeing here. And there are a couple of locations where you don't want to store a library while you're in the process of actively developing it. While you're building your library and adding references to it and making changes to it, you don't want that to reside on a network drive. If you store a library that you're actively developing on a network drive, that can increase your risk of encountering library corruption, and it can also cause general performance issues in the application if you're experiencing a lot of network traffic at that time. So backups of your EndNote libraries can be stored on network drives, but when it comes to libraries you're actively developing, you want those to be stored on your local hard drive. And in addition to that, you don't want your libraries that you're actively developing to be stored in a folder that's synced by a third-party service. So that means Dropbox would not be suitable for a library that we're actively developing. iCloud, an iCloud synced folder would not be suitable. OneDrive, if you have that set up. The order in which those services sync their files conflicts with how EndNote's writing to your library, and that can cause library corruption, as I mentioned. So those sync locations are fine for backups, again, like I mentioned. You can save backups on network drives or local sync folders. But when you're actively developing your library, you're going to choose a local folder that's not being synced by any other service. So there are a number of, even if you have, iCloud syncing turned on, there are a number of locations on your drive that aren't going to be synced with iCloud. And just as an example, what I usually recommend creating is a folder under your user folder that's dedicated to EndNote libraries. So you might have just noticed here, on your hard drive, there's a users folder. You'll have then what's typically called your home folder with your username. I've created a folder in here manually called EN Libraries. You can create a folder not as explicitly named, but whatever name you'd like, just sort of that you remember that that folder is intended for EndNote libraries. And any library that I might want to create, I'm going to go ahead and save in this particular folder here in this EN Libraries folder. Now that we've got a location set, we see that the default name that EndNote recommends for a library is My EndNote Library. That's perfectly acceptable, but I would usually recommend customizing that some way, even if it's just to append your initials at the end. Now, usually I would recommend assigning a completely unique name perhaps something related to a project or, again, focus area in your field of study, we do recommend, if possible, storing all of your literature in a single EndNote library and using what we call groups and group sets to add an extra level of organization to your EndNote library. If you're able to store everything in that one container, it helps to streamline searching in EndNote. Just as an example, if you're working on 3 projects and perhaps you created 3 separate libraries and there was a little bit of overlap in the contents of those libraries and you weren't sure which library it was that you added a reference to, in that scenario, you might have to perform the search up to 3 times, once per library, to find a particular reference. Where if all of your materials are stored in a single library, one search will find any item stored in that EndNote library. The same goes for duplicate searching. EndNote has a find duplicates feature, a topic we discussed in the advanced level lesson plan. And EndNote can't search across multiple libraries to find duplicate references. So in that scenario, if you had 3 libraries where there was some overlap, there's a chance that you've gathered some duplicates, which might cause some trouble when it comes time to format your bibliographies in Word. Where if you store everything in one EndNote library, one find duplicate search can locate, any duplicate literature or entries that are stored in that EndNote library. So I'm going to take that approach today. I'm going to give this new library the name My Research Projects. I'm going to leave Save as Package unchecked. This is a sort of a legacy file format on Mac OS. So I hate to confuse things to describe it in too much detail, but I will mention that if you choose to save your library as a package, it adds an extra step to the library recovery process if you do encounter library corruption. And because of that fact alone, I usually recommend leaving this unchecked, but again, it's your choice if you'd like to save your library as a package file. Now that I've got the location set, my EN Libraries folder within my home folder, I've got a name set for this library, My Research Projects. I'm going to go ahead and press Save here to finalize this process. Now, I've already got an existing library from a previous class. I'm going to go ahead and just replace that. This is probably a prompt that you won't see. Oh, actually, it looks like I've got a permission issue here. Let me just, it looks like I need to actually manually delete that library file. Give me just one moment here. I'm just going to navigate back to EndNote Libraries. Okay, oh, no, that looks empty here. Oh, okay, I see. I'm sorry. I went to the my alternate. I've got 2 user accounts here, and I actually went to the wrong one when we created the library. So let me just try that one more time. We've actually got a user account dedicated for classes here on this Mac. So if we go back to File, New, all we're going to do is actually navigate to the other user folder, again, which is EndNote Training. That's where we've got a folder called EndNote Libraries, which is empty. So this is, again, the location that we're going to use to save this library, since this is again, a separate user account. We'll call this, again, My Research Projects. And once we've got the location set and we've got the name assigned, we'll go ahead and press Save. Perfect. Okay, this time we do see the library that we expected to see last time around. Now, to better illustrate the various panels that comprise the EndNote 20 library window, I actually want to switch gears. Even though we just created this new blank library, I want to switch gears and open a sample library that installs with the EndNote application. If you're following along and you've just created a new blank library, feel free to just leave that open. You don't need to go find this sample library, but because that sample library already has some references, some file attachments, and some groups in it, it's just going to help me better illustrate the various panels that comprise the library window that we see here. So I'm going to leave this library open temporarily. You can have more than one library open at a time with EndNote Desktop. But if we go back to the File drop-down, this time we'll select Open Library because we want to open a library that already exists on the hard drive. So if we go ahead and just click that command, this time we're taken to a Select a Reference Library window where EndNote's just asking us to navigate to the library we'd like to open. Before we go find the sample library, I just want to point out the components that comprise the EndNote library that we currently see on screen, the new blank library that we just created. We see that in that EndNote Libraries folder, we've got two items that have the same name, My Research Projects. but we see one is a file with a .enl extension. The other is a folder with a .data extension. And you could think of the analogy that the enl file is the door to the warehouse. This is the file that you would want to interact with if you're opening an EndNote library. The data folder is really the warehouse where all of the library information is stored. You're not really going to be interacting with anything directly in that data folder. There's typically your file attachments are usually stored there, but you're usually interacting with those directly from the library window. There are some other database files that we see here as well. So it is important that you keep both of these items together at all times. It's just that if you're looking to interact with the library, it's the ENL file that you'll be selecting. So if you if you move your library from one location to another on your hard drive, make sure that you're including both of these items. If you're manually backing up your library outside of EndNote, make sure you're including both of these items. If you rename your library manually outside of EndNote just by renaming the file in the folder, be sure that you rename both of the items the same way. If there's any difference in spelling or spacing, that will throw off EndNote's ability to find the appropriate data folder. And if you're just cleaning up your hard drive, just be aware of how important this data folder is. I can't tell you how many times from my days of tech support where a user might have just dove in without investing time in a class like this and was unaware of how important that data folder is and was just cleaning up their hard drive and deleted their data folder. And when that happens, EndNote can try to make a fresh copy of it, but that resulting library won't be identical. You would be missing your groups, you would be missing your file attachments, you would be missing your term lists, and you could be missing recently added references. So again, it's very important that you keep both of these items together at all times. Now that we've covered these components, I'm just going to go ahead and track down that sample library. I'll navigate to applications here. That's typically where you'll, of course, find your EndNote applications. Of course, we're discussing EndNote 20 today, so I'll open that application folder. A series of subfolders here. We see that one's called examples. I've just navigated there. And we see that there's one library file in examples, but it has a different format than what I just described. This is what's called a compressed or archived EndNote library. If you're familiar with the zip file format, it's really the same concept. It's the type of file that can actually contain more than one item. This format is really useful for backup purposes because instead of having to maintain the separate file and folder for your EndNote library, it's just the compressed library file that you would need to keep track of. And if you were looking to email your library to someone else, another EndNote desktop user, for them to check out, you would need to compress your library because usually an email client won't allow you to attach an uncompressed folder as an email attachment. So that data folder, usually you can't send unless you compress it in some manner. This compressed library format is something you can create in EndNote on the File drop-down menu, and that's, again, something I would recommend performing periodically for backup purposes, just in case. That way you have a snapshot of your library to restore from if something were to go awry with your EndNote usage or your hard drive crashes or something like that. So to open this compressed library, we could double-click on the file here, and EndNote would extract the contained ENL file and data folder, then display the library on screen, or we can highlight it like we've just done, and we can choose open, which I think I'll go ahead and do now. Here, I'll press open. We see EndNote's, perfect, it just finished extracting those components. We see that the sample library is open in the front of the screen. We could leave both of these libraries open. Like I mentioned, you can have separate libraries open in EndNote Desktop, but to keep things streamlined for our lesson today, I'm going to go ahead and bring our new blank library to the front of the screen just by clicking on the library window, and now I can close it either by clicking the little red circle in the top left, or I can go to the File drop-down and choose Close Library. I'll go ahead and use the menu item here. Perfect. We're back on the sample library. I'm just going to go ahead and resize it here to get better use of my screen real estate. You can pretty much do this with any EndNote library. You could go full screen if you'd like, but I did want to mention that when you're direct exporting, like we'll be doing in just a little bit, you don't want to be in full screen on Mac OS. Otherwise, you can have trouble in your browser locating the EndNote library that you have open. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So what I'm doing here, I'm not maximizing or going into full screen mode, but I'm just resizing the library library window. Each of these panels can be sized to personal preference here. The primary panel that comprises the bulk of the library window is here in the middle. It's called your reference list panel. And for anyone familiar with EndNote X9 or earlier, this probably looks much different to you. This is probably the biggest upgrade or enhancement that was part of this new version of EndNote Desktop, EndNote version 20. The same concepts really still apply. Our product team did a lot of focus group testing with longtime EndNote users, new EndNote users, and non-users, researchers who might be using another solution, another bibliographic management software package to inform our design decisions, and the changes that we've implemented were overwhelmingly endorsed across the board. But again, here in the middle of the library window, the reference list panel, you can display up to 10 columns of information, various bits of details from your EndNote library entries. You might notice here I'm, clicking the column labels here where I can temporarily resort my references based on that information. I can go to Z to A or A to Z, or in terms of numbers, I can go ascending to descending, either way. Like I was describing, you could resize these to personal preference just by dragging that little separator left or right to narrow or broaden a particular column here. If you want to change your display columns, you can go to the EndNote 20 drop-down menu. That's where you find preferences for EndNote 20 for Mac. We would go to the Display Fields tab, and again, this is where you've got up to 10 columns that are available to configure. Perhaps just as an example, maybe we'll be using the label field in our library for a personal filing number. Maybe we've got some print materials that we want to keep track of. Here we can find the field that we're using to store that information. Label typically goes unused, so I usually recommend, if you're looking for a custom field to begin to populate, label's a good candidate. And since we're not storing, a quote-unquote label in this field, like I mentioned, we're going to use it for a filing number, we can actually change the column label, if we'd like, to whatever heading we'd prefer to see. Press that Save button in the bottom right, close Preferences, and just to show you, if we scroll to the right here, we see that we've got our new column. Nothing in any of these example references in label just yet, but if we go ahead and start adding, like I mentioned, a filing number to that label field, we'll begin to see those here right on the reference list panel. Now, on the right side of the library window, we have what's called the reference panel, previously referred to as the tabs panel, but there's a new feature in EndNote 20 that might cause confusion with that term. So again, this is being rebranded to what's called the reference panel. This panel, even though we've really tried to simplify and streamline the interface in EndNote 20 to make things a lot easier to work with in the library window, this summary tab on the reference panel is really allowing us to display more vital information front and center than we've ever been able to in the past. So you might notice as I click around in the reference list panel that summary tab updates to show the details for that particular reference. Depending on the type of reference it is, we'll dictate the pieces of information that we see displayed. Not every type of reference material has the same, vital details. So again, depending if it's a book or a journal article, we'll dictate which pieces of information show here. If you have a reference in your library that's indexed by the Web of Science, and you're at an institution with Web of Science access, you can actually quickly access that reference in the Web of Science from the Summary tab here. There's a link. You can also get to it here from the References drop-down menu. There's a Web of Science menu item. So you can look at the source record. That would be that same entry within the Web of Science. You can perform a related record search, which will show you other references indexed by the Web of Science that have at least one citation in common with that source record. So really a great way to find literature you might not have stumbled across otherwise. Or you can generate a citation report, which is useful for tenure, or just sort of getting a summary of an author's or a researcher's experience, publishing experience. You can generate that using the Web of Science quickly in EndNote 20. So it's nice to have those links in your library here. Now, at the bottom of the Summary tab, we have what's called the Preview panel, and we see that that's showing us an example of how the selected reference would format depending on whichever style is currently selected. So right now we're previewing the default annotated style. That's really a generic author date style that includes abstract information if available, a pretty uncommon requirement. So if you were looking to preview a different style for your project, maybe let's say APA 7th, you can choose it from a list of favorites. Or from this dropdown, you can choose select another style where the choose a style window will appear showing you all available output styles in your EndNote application. We include about 500 of the most popular styles by default. But at endnote.com on the downloads page, you'll find our content file repositories. And in our style repository, we have over 7,200 predefined styles. So if there's a particular journal you're looking to submit a project to, or just a set of formatting guidelines you need to apply to a research project and you're not finding it on the default list here, check out endnote.com/downloads to find our style repository, and again, good chance you'll be able to find that to download in that repository. Just a quick example here, we'll go ahead and type a couple of letters. I've just found the JAMA style. If I go ahead and press choose, we see that the preview updates accordingly. And again, this is a great way to spot potential data entry issues before you start citing in Word. You might spot a typo in an author name, maybe a stray carriage return that was pasted into a library record, and you would be able to, address that and make the fix before you start citing in a research project. On the reference panel, we have the Edit tab where you'll be able to preview or update all underlying information for whichever reference is selected in the reference list panel here. So just to show you, as I click around, the details are updating to show all of the fields related to that particular reference. There are dozens of fields available to populate. Like I was mentioning, if you needed to make a correction to a reference, you could actually make changes here. You can fix a typo. You can delete a piece of information. You can add a missing detail. It's really, personal preference with regard to, how quickly you're building the references or how many pieces of detail you're keeping in each one of your library entries here. Now, this library does have some example PDF articles. Any reference in your library that has at least one file attachment will show a little paperclip in its file attachment column here. It doesn't mean it's a PDF. It could be a Word document. It could be an Excel spreadsheet, like I mentioned. If it is a PDF, you'd be able to open it within Notes. So we can go to the Summary tab, which shows us the any files that are linked to this particular highlighted reference. We could open it from here, or we could go to the PDF tab, which shows us a preview. This PDF preview tab shows us that selected references article, so that, if we had a larger monitor, it might make a little bit more sense to be able to try to read the pages here. We could, resize it if we wanted to, and we can scroll back and forth if we need to. But this is something we had initially removed from EndNote 20. The idea was that most users, have, maybe 13, 14-inch screens, and it's not really realistic to read text in this panel, but we did get some feedback from the broader EndNote community from researchers using very large monitors or televisions for their screens. And they asked, please, users, please, restore it. And so with an EndNote 20 update, we've added the preview panel back. If this was a little bit too small, perhaps it gave you a good idea if that was an article you wanted to view. Right here, you could actually pop it out into the standalone PDF viewer by clicking this icon. This, too, is part of the EndNote application. We can resize this, again, to get better use of our screen real estate. We can scroll through the pages here and read the article. We're going to come back to this window in just a little bit to talk about the annotation capabilities, but I did just want to quickly give some context to that PDF preview panel here. Now, you can hide this panel. In previous versions of EndNote Desktop, you could reposition this to the bottom of your library window. I do apologize, part of our streamlining, we've made the decision to have this if it's displayed on the right side of the library window. You can close it at any time by clicking the X in the corner of the reference panel. That gives your reference list panel a little bit more screen real estate, as we see here. And at any point, if we want the reference panel to reappear, we just double-click any reference. That makes that panel show up once more, and we can continue looking at the related details here. On the left side of the library window, we have the Groups panel. This can be resized, as we see as well. It can't be completely collapsed, but you see we can resize this here in EndNote 20. This groups panel will always include default groups such as all references. This shows you every single entry stored in an EndNote library. Recently added by default will show you references added in the last 24 hours, but if you right-click on that, you can toggle it to show you references added in the last 7 days, 14 days, or 30 days, your choice. Unfiled, you could sort of think of as your library's inbox, and this unfiled group is letting you know if you have any references that aren't part of a custom group. And this, again, if you're looking to use groups and group sets to add that extra level of organization to your library, and you want to make sure that everything is associated with a project, unfiled is a quick and easy way to look to see if you've missed any references. So currently we have 1 out of 190 references in this library that's not part of a custom group. And if we right click on unfiled, we can actually have it consider whether or not it's part of a smart group as well. And again, that will possibly alter our results here. But we're going to go ahead and just as an example here, just to show you, we can drag and drop this into a custom group represented by the little inbox icon that we see here on the groups panel. And we see that we've just filed that one reference away just in an example group here. Trash, we see, is a default, of course, as the name implies. This is a holding space for references you choose to remove from your library. You can always restore something from the trash if you need to. If you right-click on it, you have the option to restore it to the library. But if these are items you know that you'll never need to use again or keep track of, you can right-click on your trash and empty the trash if you'd prefer, your choice. And again, in the sample library, we have example group sets. These are the overarching labels that we see within the groups panel here. We have a group set for an Avid intelligence project and another group set for a batch-related project. Those can be collapsed, as we see here. Now, these group sets show examples of all 3 types of library groups that I described. We're focusing, again, on custom groups today. Those are the items that we manually populate. They have the little inbox icon just to let you know that that's a custom group, that type that you manually populate. Smart groups are represented by the little magnifying glass. These are auto-populated. Again, we don't really go too in detail here in this lesson, but just to quickly show you, a smart group has a search link to it. This particular smart group is searching any field for the term sonar, and EndNote would automatically associate references with that smart group. Combination groups are present here as well. They have a little overlapping inbox icon, and just to quickly show you, if we edit that group, it too has a search link to it, but instead of defining a term or a phrase, combination groups are used to compare or contrast the contents of 2 or more groups in your library. So if you want to know how 2 groups differ or how they overlap, you can achieve that with a combination group. And we see that this combination group is showing references that are either in the sonar group or the echolocation group together. So just wanted to point that out. And we do see just a little bit further down, if we temporarily collapse our group structure, we do see that the results of a full text search are displayed in your groups panel. If someone shares a group of references with you via EndNote Online, you have shortcuts to those here. And there is a feature in EndNote called Online Search, which allows EndNote to connect to various remote databases to gather new research literature in your library. Now, Online Search is a very literal search. It's great to be able to search from EndNote, but I definitely think it's more advantageous to perform your searches, via web browsers on information providers' websites. Their searches in that manner usually will expand to include similar terms or phrases, where the online search feature, it's very literal. Whatever term or phrase you input, that's all the database is looking for. And again, we're going to be talking about direct export in just a moment, which is a method to automatically capture references from a browser. Before we do that, the final panel that I just want to touch on before we create a reference by hand is the search panel that we see at the top of the library window. In EndNote X9 and earlier, there was a concept called Quick Search. It was a global search of any field and any one of your displayed references. That concept still exists in EndNote 20. It's just now known as Simple Search, and it's been integrated in the same panel as what we call Advanced Search. So right now, this single search field is a representation of Simple Search. We can select any given set of references here to search on. If we wanted to focus our search on a particular group, we would select it first. If we want to query the entire library, we would select all references. And here in the Simple Search field, we can type in a term or a phrase. press return on our keyboard, and EndNote will initiate that search and show us the matching references, and we'll highlight where the term is found in display fields here. So just to show, we've got one reference where we've got an author whose surname is Bird. We have some other entries where Bird is being found in title. So again, quick way to search for a term or phrase. But if you want to search for a or rather, if you want to craft a multi-parameter search, or if you want to limit your search or target it to a particular field, that's when you would want to craft an advanced search. And if we click on that to toggle the search panel, we see the panel expands. The default advanced search panel shows 3 parameter fields. You don't have to populate every one of them. You can populate just one if you'd like. If you needed more than 3 parameters, you can click the plus next to any one of them, and that would add additional parameter fields. Just to quickly show you here, you can see the default fields that are available to query in your EndNote library. Every single field is available to query, from your library window. These are all of the generic field names that we see here. So we could perform that same search again. This time we're going to just focus our search on author. I did want to point out in EndNote desktop, you can craft in your advanced search a very complex search. You can use contains to look for, a term or phrase within, a broader field. If you want to find an exact match, you can choose is. If you want to look for a number range, we've got options for that. If you want to generally find how a field begins or ends with a particular word or phrase, there are options for that as well. And if maybe you have several keywords that share the same root and you want to find all variants, you can use word begins with. So I did just want to point that out. Today we're just going to leave this set to contains for now, and we'll input that same search term Bird. And this time if we press search, because we only have one reference where the term Bird is found in the author field, that's why we've only got one search result this time around. So that was a quick tour of the library window here in EndNote 20. And next, like I mentioned, I wanted to show you how to manually add a reference if the need were to arise. Something that doesn't come up very often. There are, again, many information providers that have automated EndNote export options. But if you ever need to manually add a reference, whether it be maybe a government report that you can't find online, or maybe you want to cite an individual web page, which usually wouldn't have an EndNote export option, you can create a reference manually. You can go to the References drop-down menu. You can click New Reference here. Alternately, this shortcut right on the library window in the toolbar would also create a new reference. We can go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and clear that search. We'll create our new reference by clicking the shortcut. We see the new reference window has appeared, and we've got the default reference type journal article selected. You can change that if you work more often with books or other types of materials, but again, we're looking right now at the journal article fields. And we usually recommend setting your reference type first, because that will dictate the field labels that are displayed on this new reference window. So just as an example, let's say maybe we are actually going to be adding a newspaper article to this example library. If we choose that, all right, there we are. So we see we now have the newspaper article reference type selected, and we see that some of the field labels have changed. What had been called the author field is now called reporter. What had been called the journal field is now called newspaper. So again, a little bit more appropriate for this type of reference material in our EndNote library. Now, when you're entering names, whether it be an author name, reporter name, an editor name, any name field, you could input names as first name space last name, or you can use last name comma first name. Either format is perfectly fine. You want to enter one name per line. That's how EndNote knows where one name ends and the next name begins. I did just want to mention there is one additional name format that you might find yourself needing to use if you're citing a reference from a non-person author, maybe a nonprofit, a government body, any organization name that's not a person. You would input the name exactly as you would want to output it in your formatted bibliography, and then you would put a trailing comma at the end of the name. That's basically just a note to the EndNote software that this is not a person's name, and not try to parse it out as such. So that trailing comma wouldn't carry over into our reference. It's just a note for the EndNote application. Now, these names are in red because this is a field linked to a term list. And as the name implies, an EndNote term list is just part of your library that's set up to look at a particular field or set of fields to take note of the terms that you add. So that EndNote can suggest terms as you add new references. Just to show you, if I start typing here, we see that EndNote is suggesting other author names for us. And if just as an example, if that's the name we wanted, we can press the right arrow and EndNote auto populates the rest for us. So that can save us time performing data entry. It also reduces potential data entry errors. If you're typing a name or a keyword over and over, you might miss a character, and that can impact results, search results, and projects, in different manners down the road. So we see here when a term is found in a library, it shows as black text. If it's a new term, it shows in red. Just to recap, red doesn't mean wrong. It just means it's the first time that term is found in this library. If we knew we had another reference from John Smith, that might let us know we have a typo, or we're using an alternate naming convention, which can throw off EndNote's ability to consistently format a reference. We don't have to populate every field here. At the very least, you would want to populate the fields that you would like to include in your formatted bibliography, and you can always come back and add additional information to the EndNote library reference in your library at any point. So this is enough just for our test here. So what we're going to do now is just close this reference by clicking the little red button in the top left. We'll be prompted to save the change, and if we go and say save, that's now in the EndNote library. We see all references has grown. Recently added has grown by 1 to show this reference. We see unfiled has grown to show this new reference. It's not yet part of a group. And if we wanted to, again, keep things organized, we can drag and drop this. Just as an example, we'll put it into Parrott's custom group there. And now everything is organized, no unfiled references. So again, you might not find yourself ever needing to manually add a reference, but it's always good to know how to do it just in case. A more common method of automated reference capturing, like I was mentioning, is a direct export. It's a technology that many information providers have implemented already, and it gives the site an EndNote export option. So here we're on the new Web of Science. We're just going to perform a quick search here. We can, if we expand the fields drop-down, maybe we'll actually query by topic, which will query several fields at once: title, abstract, author, keywords, and keywords plus. Oops, excuse me, let me click that there. There we are. And so let's go ahead and we'll search for the term asthma, the topic of asthma here in the Web of Science. We'll add a row so that we can craft a multi-parameter search. We've got our Boolean operators here that you might have also seen in EndNote. And they're not unique to EndNote or the Web of Science. It's just a search component so that a database or an application knows how to link 2 or more search terms together. We want to narrow the scope of our results, so we'll choose the AND operator, and we want everything published in the last decade. So we'll choose year published here, and we'll just define the date range for the last decade. Now that we've crafted that search, we can press search here. We still have quite a few references that were found indexed within the Web of Science core collection. We see that we have 1,003 references available. Now, you can export up to 1,000 references at a time from the new Web of Science. So, if we wanted to, we can export. If we wanted more than 1,000 references, we can perform a series of exports, 1,000 at a time. If this is even too many items to consider, at this point, we do have some additional filtering options as well if you wanted to, narrow down the criteria or focus the criteria a little bit further there. Maybe we'll choose affiliation just as an example. And now we've got 3,200 items to consider. If we wanted specific references, we can mark those items, and just those references, would be sent to our EndNote library. But if we don't mark any, we can request a range of references up to 1,000 at a time, like I mentioned. So we'll uncheck those. We'll go ahead and request a range. I think we'll just request the first 50, and we'll go ahead and proceed by clicking export. We'll choose EndNote Desktop as our destination. That's what we're focusing on today. Because we hadn't defined a range, because we hadn't marked specific references, we can define a range of references that we'd like to capture on this window. And again, we don't need 1,000. Maybe let's capture the second batch of 50. So we're going to ask for 51 through 100, just to give you an idea that you can, again, customize which references you'd like to capture. And if you wanted more than 1,000, you would export the first 1,000, and of course come back here and ask for 1,001 to 2,000, or whatever the number is that you're interested in. But we're going to go and say 51 through 100. Certain information providers give you control over how much information is sent to your EndNote library. The Web of Science is one of them. And since we're searching from the core collection, we can query not only by author, title, source, and abstract, but we can ask for a full record. And that's going to give us the author's address and the key words for these references as well. So a little bit more of a complete entry in our library. We'll go ahead and press export. And I hadn't mentioned this yet, but we're in Mozilla Firefox. And I would really recommend using this browser for direct exports on Mac OS, even if you prefer, and again, this is your personal preference, but even if you prefer, Apple Safari or Google Chrome, because Mozilla Firefox has built-in file type associations, you don't have to rely on the operating system to know how to handle temporary internet files as you're performing direct exports. Right in Mozilla Firefox, you can tell the browser how to handle a temporary internet file that needs to be opened by EndNote to complete the export. So normally what we would be doing here is selecting to open this temporary file. We see that Web of Science has generated a file with the savedirects.ciw extension. And we would want to open this file with the EndNote application, which we are going to do in just a moment. But I'm actually going to save this file the first time around. This is basically what would happen if you performed a direct export using Chrome or Safari. Those browsers will save the temporary file initially, and you can then tell your operating system how that file, or rather which application to associate with that file. But I've saved it just to give you a sneak peek of what's contained in that temporary file. So you might have noticed using Finder, I've navigated to downloads. We see that the Web of Science calls their temporary file savedirects.ciw. And if we open this with a text editor, we'll be able to look at the contents. Even though it has a custom extension, we should be able to open this with even text edit here on Mac OS. That should work. Let's go and choose that. All right, there we are. So this is the data that was prepared by the Web of Science for our 50 references and is to be sent to EndNote to import into the EndNote library. And just to clarify, whether you're automatically importing references via direct export or manually importing a text file of references, the data will be in a format that looks somewhat like this. EndNote doesn't read the reference while you're importing it. EndNote is looking for the preceding tag in front of each piece of information, and depending on the source of the data and the filter that the import filter that you apply, EndNote will know, it will have all of the tags defined in the import filter, and each tag has a field linked to it. So in this case, EndNote would know that this file was coming from the Web of Science, so to apply the appropriate Web of Science filter to the data, and then that way it would know every time I see PT, this is a journal reference, so use the journal tags. Anytime I see an AU tag, those are going to be authors. That data needs to go to the author field. Just as an example, anytime I see TI, that's title information. That goes to the title field. SO is usually the source. The journal information, that goes to the journal field, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to give you a sneak peek of what this is, what's happening behind the scenes when you're direct exporting. Again, if you were using Chrome or Safari, you could import this file, but you would have to go to with Finder, find the file. You would have to double click on it, tell your operating system to open that file with EndNote. But we're just going to go ahead and initiate the export one more time from Firefox to show you how you can use the browser to designate file type associations. So again, we'll go to export, EndNote desktop. I'm just going to go ahead and choose 51 to 100 again real quick, just like we did last time. Record content, we'll set to full record here. If we click on export, we get that prompt once again to open. This time we're going to open the file. We'll choose the EndNote application. We just need to navigate to it here under applications. Now that that's selected, I would recommend that you mark this so that the browser remembers how to handle this going forward. But because I lead classes like this fairly often, we're going to leave that unchecked. And with this configured, if we click OK, because we have the library open and we're not in full screen like I was describing, the library can come to the front of the screen and receive those references. You would find, I'm not going to do it, but if you were in full screen on your library, actually I will do it just to show you. If we go full screen here where you have to swipe and you go like this, the browser can't get to your library, and you might get a prompt to open your library even though it's already open, or you might get a prompt saying it can't access your library. That's something you can avoid if you just, when you're performing a direct export like that. You want to make sure that you can see the browser window and your library window in the same display essentially. So right now I've got both windows, one overlapping the other. But just to show you here in the library, we've completed our direct export. We have a new temporary group called imported references. It's showing the 50 references that we just gathered or just captured. The same 50 are also part of all references. Again, this shows you all references that are stored in an EndNote library. And we see that these are also considered unfiled because they're not yet part of a custom group. And before we move on, I want to make a group set for this project, this asthma-related project, and we're going to make a catch-all custom group that will serve as a sort of a place to store all of the literature that we're finding for this project for consideration. So we'll go ahead and create a new group set in this library by going to the Groups drop-down menu here at the top of the screen. We'll choose Create Group Set about halfway down. We see the new group set's been created. We can give it any name we'd like, but something related to the project or, again, focus area usually makes the most sense. Now that we've got the name set, we'll press Return. With that name entered here, we can go ahead and now select that group set, and it's ready to start receiving groups. So you can make groups for different purposes for your projects, but again, in this project, we're going to be casting a very broad net in our discovery phase to make sure that we're considering as much literature as possible. So we're going to make a custom group called Asthma in General, which is, again, just going to be a catch-all for this project. So with our group set selected, we'll go to the Groups drop-down again. We'll click on Create Group, this first menu item. This is how you'll create a custom group. We see the new group has been created. We can go ahead and delete the placeholder name here. We can go ahead replace that name with whatever name we'd like. And again, something related to the purpose usually makes the most sense. So in this case, we're calling this Asthma in General. We'll press Return. That name is now designated, and that group is ready to start receiving references. So if we go to Unfiled, we can now click on any one of these references here to make the reference list panel active. If we perform a Select All from the Edit dropdown, that'll highlight all the references. And now we can simply drag and drop the references into the group, the appropriate group here. That's how you can populate custom groups. Alternately, you can go to the Groups drop-down menu. You can point your mouse over Add References To. You can actually create the group at the same time if you had not yet created that group ahead of time. But because we already did, we see that it's listed here on the submenu. So I'm going to go and associate these references by clicking on the group name from the submenu here. So I'll go ahead and left click. All right. We see that we have no longer any unfiled references. All 50 are now part of Asthma in General. They're still part of all references as well, and if we perform another direct export, the imported references group will update. So that was a quick direct export example from the Web of Science using Mozilla Firefox. I did just want to quickly, I think I'm being a little long-winded today, so we're running a little bit over schedule, or behind schedule rather. But I do just want to quickly show you to perform one more direct export to reinforce the fact that the steps to initiate the export can vary from site to site. So I'm going to perform a very quick search here for just the term asthma. We've got, of course, quite a few references to consider here. But if we wanted specific search results, we can mark them similarly to how we did in the Web of Science. But if we don't mark any, PubMed.gov allows us to export up to 10,000 references at a time. And now I don't think we need that many for our example, of course, so maybe we'll stick with whatever is shown on this first page. It looks like we're just displaying 10 references. We could change that. If we click the display options here, we can maybe change it to 50. No, actually, let's change it to 100 just to better illustrate the differences after we complete this second export. So we're showing 100 references. If we don't mark any of them, we can request all 100 to be sent to our library. From PubMed.gov, we proceed with the export by pressing Send To. We would choose Citation Manager. And then depending on which references you want to export will dictate what you choose for selection. We want all results on this page. We want the 100 displayed references, so we'll leave that set. But if we wanted up to 10,000 results, we can choose all results. Or if we had marked specific search results, we would choose selection. I'm going to leave all results on this page chosen, and we'll press Create File. We see that we have a similar prompt in Mozilla Firefox. PubMed.gov uses a different file format, but regardless of the extension, these are all just temporary text files. We want to make sure that this file is opened by EndNote to complete the export, so that's already set. If you were performing this action, again, I would recommend marking this box so that the browser remembers this preference. That way you don't have to configure this every time, but I want to make sure this prompt comes up next time around. I'll go ahead and press OK. Perfect. We see the library has come back to the front of the screen. The imported references group is updated to show the 100 we just captured. All references, of course, is updated as well. Recently added is updated. Unfiled, of course, again, is updated, showing the new 100 references. We want them in our catch-all group here. It's easiest to group references as you're adding them. That way, typically, all of the unfiled references would pertain to a particular topic or particular project. We can click on any one of the references, perform a select all keyboard shortcut, and if we just drag and drop, there we are. We see we have no unfiled references again. We currently have all 150 references we've captured through our 2 direct exports stored within this ASMA General Custom Group. So again, it's pretty clear, even though the steps can differ, it's pretty clear how you would initiate an export from an information provider site. But if it's not clear and you're affiliated with a university, please reach out to a university librarian, because not only can they help you with this topic of direct exporting to EndNote, but they'll be able to let you know which subscription databases your institution has access to and which would be best for your project. And they'd be happy to discuss that with you. You can also reach out to EndNote product support, perhaps if you're not at a university. We usually don't have subscription database access as well, but usually we'd be able to give some advice or try to find some instructions to help you understand how to perform a direct export. Now, like I mentioned, I quickly wanted to touch on this new optional browser extension called EndNote Click. It's something that installs automatically with EndNote 20, but if for some reason it didn't install for you, you can install it quickly by clicking on the Tools drop-down in EndNote 20, and this will take you directly to the EndNote Click homepage. I've already got this loaded in Mozilla Firefox. That's where we see the EndNote Click icon here in the top right, but if you didn't have it just yet, you can create your account and install the plugin from this page. This is compatible with Google Chrome as well, other Chromium-based browsers like Microsoft Edge. You can load this in the Opera browser. The one mainstream browser it's not yet compatible with is the Apple Safari browser, so I do apologize, but we are collecting feedback if you want to pass it on to the EndNote support team. Now again, I've already got this installed, so I'm not going to go ahead and create an account from scratch, but once you've got an EndNote Click account created, you'll see that that EndNote Click is able to integrate in over 20,000 scholarly sites, and it might do so in different methods. So just to show you here, this is an example of a site that allows EndNote Click integration, PubMed.gov. Behind the scenes, EndNote Click, it's trying to find PDFs that are available to download. Now, for me, I'm relying on open access published articles, so only freely available to read. But if you had, again, institutional affiliation, you can define that in your EndNote Click account so that if you hit a paywall, you'll be taken to your institution's sort of login page so that you can provide your institutional credentials. EndNote Click never receives those. Those are stored encrypted in your browser. But EndNote Click will use those encrypted credentials to help try to find subscription-based articles that you would have access to through your institutional affiliation. So any one of these items here that EndNote Click finds, we can press View PDF. Before we do that, we see that if we just hover our mouse over View PDF, EndNote Click tells us where this is found. So this item is actually already an item we've collected in our locker. We see with that check mark. So let's actually go down further. Let's find something that's not yet in our locker. Here, okay, it looks like this item is a new article here. We've clicked on it. We're viewing this PDF, which adds the article to our EndNote Click locker, which is just a holding space for PDFs until you decide where to send them or how you want to handle them. We can read the article directly from the locker itself. We have a summary of it here on the left. We could download the PDF to our drive, email it to someone else. We can visit the journal page. We can get just a plain text reference if we wanted to paste that in an email. We can tag the article in our locker to add an extra level of organization. If this is indexed by the Web of Science, we can view the Web of Science record. The item I had skipped is export reference. that's what we're going to click on. If we want to send this to our EndNote library, we can click Export Reference. And what will happen is that a file, if we click on that there, another temporary file gets generated. This time the EndNote Click uses an RIS file extension. Same thing occurs. We just want to open this with the EndNote application. And once that's selected here, and because we've already got our library open, that comes to the front of the screen. We see the reference in our library. But the difference here, the difference to just plain direct export, is that not only did we get the reference, but we got the PDF at the same time. So what had traditionally been two workflows are condensed into one using EndNote Click. You're able to gather, reference metadata, entries in your EndNote library, and at the same time, EndNote is receiving the full text PDF article. It still lives in your EndNote Click locker for safekeeping. You can delete that again if you'd prefer. You can also bypass the locker as well. Just to quickly show you, some sites don't allow us to integrate onto their results page, their search results page. Google Scholar is an example of that. For whatever reason, I don't think it's unique to us. They have an idea of how they want their page to look, and they don't want other buttons or tools changing that. So even though we don't see a similar View PDF button here, when you have an active browser extension like EndNote Click, again, usually you'll have an icon for it in the top right of your browser. For EndNote Click, there are some links to get your locker in for settings. But the other thing that occurs here is that EndNote Click will recreate the search that's displayed on screen so that you can interact with references or request references even if there's no View PDF button on the search results page. So just to show you here, if I go back there, perfect, it's finished performing its search. So basically, just to show you what we're looking at is just a recreation of the results that are on this Google Scholar results page. The PDFs that are available for me are listed. The items that aren't freely available, EndNote Click can't retrieve for me. But I can request one PDF at a time from this Smart Extension screen, or I could request multiple PDFs to be exported. So let's just say I want these first two articles here from this page of search results. I could, if I just want to add these to my locker, I could view the selected PDFs, and new browser tabs will open showing me those PDFs in my locker. I can, again, skip the locker and just download those PDFs to my hard drive, or I could bypass that step as well and just send both of these references, the reference and PDF, to an EndNote library. That's what I'm going to go and do now. I'm going to go and say export selected PDFs. We just want to go and say allow here to make sure that the browser can perform its function. And we do need to, for this here, I do need to tell the browser how to handle this, how to handle this file. We just want to choose EndNote. And because we're performing multiple reference export, I do need to tell the browser how to handle this file going forward. Otherwise, that is going to hold up the export for me. So let me just try that one more time here because we had to set that preference, that browser preference. So we go back to the EndNote Click Smart Extension screen, mark those first two references here. We can click Export Selected PDFs. All right. Oh, no, still getting the prompt here. Okay, I have to check my browser settings here. So you get the general idea, but let me go and just do this for the second PDF this time around. That way we've got one instance of both here. So I do apologize. I have to just check my browser settings. There we go. So just the idea is that there are certain sites that EndNote Click can still work with. They just don't allow us to display any EndNote Click buttons on the page. And for those sites, you have to use the EndNote Click Smart Extension screen here. But this is also how you can export multiple references at once from sites that do allow us to display View PDF. So even on PubMed.gov, where we have the View PDF button, the same thing. If we go and perform that search one more time here, we can we've got the same search results that are recreated on this screen. And if we wanted to request more than one reference at once to be sent to our library, we could mark them or mark all available references shown here, and again export them en masse to our active EndNote library. So you've got a lot of options related to browser searching or web searching to automatically capture references using EndNote. Now, like I was mentioning, EndNote does have the ability to manage your file attachments as well. We've already seen in this sample library some example articles, but just to show you here, if you ever need to manually attach a file yourself, we could just go and select a reference in the EndNote library by highlighting it here. A couple of options, a couple of commands to do so, but the easiest method of adding a file attachment would be from the Summary tab. You can click Attach File. We are shown a browse window where we just need to navigate to whatever file it is that we want to attach. here in downloads, I've got a couple of example articles, and not the true article for this publication, but just an example here. We can go and highlight that, press open. And what EndNote does is it makes a relative link by default. And what that is even though we've linked this file that existed in our downloads folder, once we chose the file, EndNote copied that file and put the version that EndNote accesses within the library's data folder. So just to quickly show you, I'm using Finder to navigate. Oh, excuse me, this is the sample library, so I have to navigate to the EndNote folder here. But I'm just navigating to this library's data folder. Again, it's something you don't usually interact with directly, but I just want to show you that when we attach that PDF, EndNote copied it, and the version that EndNote accesses is in this library's data folder. So we see that in the PDF subfolder, there are serialized folders for each record in the EndNote library. And if we go to the most recent one, this is the PDF that we just manually attached. The reason EndNote makes relative links is that you could then move your library to a completely different computer, and all of your file attachments would still be valid. You could turn relative linking off, and EndNote would just make a pointer to the various files on your drive. And that's what's called an absolute link. But if you choose to do that and you move your library to another computer, unless you can exactly recreate those file paths, your file attachments would be broken. So again, that's one of the benefits of relative linking. So you can link, like I mentioned, up to 45 files per library record. Just as an example here on that same reference, we'll go ahead and attach a second file. Maybe we'll go and just as an example, we'll attach a Word document just as a test here. We'll go ahead and attach that, my rating project, and if we open that, we see that that's linked as well. But again, if it's something other than a PDF, you would have to have that associated application on your drive to open that file. So in this case, if I wanted to open up this Word document, I would have to have Word installed in this computer. But if it's a PDF, again, we can look at that PDF preview panel. We can expand that. We can make the text larger. We can print this out from here. We can email the PDF to someone from here as well. Or if we wanted to view it in that standalone window, we can click on that icon to pop out the PDF viewer here. We can resize this if we'd like. We can read the pages similarly to how you could in the EndNote Click Locker. But the difference here, that sort of functionality that's not present in the EndNote Click Locker, at least as of yet, is that you can add PDF annotations to your articles. So if you click this little icon, this little speech bubble on the PDF viewer toolbar, you see the options here. You can do things like highlight text. If I just let me click, there we go. Click on that icon. Perfect. There we are. And if you just click on the page here, you can highlight text. I'm not sure why that's not sticking it. There we go. My problem with my trackpad. So you can highlight text, you can underline text, you can strike out text. One of the benefits of the annotation tools on Mac OS is actually you can apply different colors to the annotations. Unfortunately, that's something we don't have yet on the Windows version of EndNote. It's really any sort of highlighting or sticky notes you're adding are going to be just the traditional yellow, sort of the highlighter yellow color. But on Mac OS, you do have the ability to apply different colors. If you wanted to add a sticky note, like I mentioned, it's this little icon here on the EndNote annotation toolbar. If you click this little speech bubble here, you could then, if you click somewhere on the page, you can add that little sticky note, double click on that icon. You can add your sticky note text. I'm just going to add the phrase interesting article. This can be a term or a phrase for yourself or a note to a colleague. Like I mentioned, if you set up a library sharing team, we can close that sticky note. We can then close the PDF to save the changes. And if we go and say save, all right, we see we're back on the library window. We see we're on the same reference. If we scroll up, we see the preview, the PDF preview shows us the annotations that we added. And again, those sticky notes are searchable. So if you ever want to search your sticky note text from a guest search, you could either select PDF notes. That would strictly search sticky notes. Or you can select the most overarching search option here in EndNote Desktop, which would be to query your library by any field in any one of your library records. In addition to that, EndNote would query or scan the digitized pages of your PDF attachments to find terms or phrases in the PDFs themselves. And with notes, that would be and the sticky note text that it would search as well. So I did just want to point that out, that that's searchable after the fact. Now, like I mentioned, you can manually attach files to existing library references, But if you want EndNote to try to go out onto the web to try to find articles for you to download automatically, that's something you can do with Find Full Text. You can perform a Find Full Text search in one by one, or you can perform batch searches. So maybe as a test, I'm going to resort the library chronologically by year. And let's get the newest references at the top here. There we are. And we'll go ahead and just, I usually recommend keeping your Find Full Text search batches to maybe about 24 references or fewer. You can technically select up to 250 references per batch, but I think 24 or so is a little bit more manageable. So I've highlighted roughly about 24 references here. We could go to the references drop-down menu. That's where we can initiate a Find Full Text search. The easier option would be to just click this shortcut right here on the library toolbar, this magnifying glass icon. That will trigger Find Full Text search. Now that I've clicked that, we can actually scroll down a little bit in the Groups panel. We see that we've got the Find Full Text search is actively taking place. When the search is active, you'll see the searching label letting you know how many references remain in the search. There are 3 possible outcomes from a Find Full Text search. We've already got all 3 outcomes, which is great. I just want to let this finish before we proceed. Otherwise, it can be a little bit jumpy clicking around. Perfect, it just finished. So I'm going to temporarily collapse the group structure again just to make the Find Full Text section a little bit more visible. And we see that we've got 3 outcomes here. So it looks like I only had about 14 references selected, which is fine. But out of the 14, EndNote was able to find 5. And again, I'm only relying on open access resources. So there were 5 articles that EndNote found available to download for free and did that for me and actually attached those to the appropriate references in my EndNote library, our sample library today. For 4 of the 14, EndNote didn't find a PDF to download, but it found a URL to add to the reference in the library. Usually that URL will be to the publisher's website, where you would either have the option to purchase the article, possibly rent the article, perhaps log on to an individual subscription. I did want to mention that if something comes up as found URL, and you're affiliated with an institution like a university or another organization, I would check with a librarian if you've got a library resource at your organization, just to make sure that you don't have access to the article through some other system or service for free. So again, if something comes up as found URL, usually you'll have the option to purchase it, but there's a chance you might have access to it for free through some other system or service that EndNote can't query. And of course, the final outcome is just not found. For 5 of the 14, EndNote wasn't able to find any article to download. This paperclip that we see here, that's our sample PDF that we attached a little bit ago, which is why you're seeing that there. But for these 5 of the 14, EndNote wasn't able to find anything to download and just added it to the appropriate group here. So that's a great way to have EndNote go ahead and do that PDF searching for you automatically. Like I mentioned, if you go to the EndNote 20 dropdown, to select Preferences again, and this time go to Find Full Text. This is where you can reconfigure the resources that EndNote will query during a Find Full Text search. If you're at an organization which employs an open URL server or maybe subscribes to that service through another company, you would have something that looks like a web address that either a librarian or an IT member might provide to you, and you would be able to type that web address into the URL path field here. That can add additional resources that EndNote can query during a Find Full Text search to improve your overall success rate. In addition, like I mentioned, if you're at a larger institution like a university, you'll usually have an authentication URL. That's usually the start page for your institution's website, typically, where you can provide your institutional credentials. If you define that here, once per Find Full Text session, a browser window will open in EndNote, taking you to that page so that you could provide your institutional credentials. And then for that session of Find Full Text searching, EndNote would have, again, possibly additional resources to query to help improve your overall success rate. Now, I don't have specialized article access, like I mentioned, so I don't have anything to input here. But again, you can potentially improve your success rate by adding preference details, institution-specific preferences to this screen here. Now, if you are that sort of type of researcher who is just coming across PDF articles on the web and you're just saving those during your discovery process to your hard drive, you could import those into EndNote as well. And you could do that one at a time, file by file, or if you've got an entire folder of PDFs, you can point EndNote to that folder, and EndNote will try to import those PDFs into your library one at a time automatically. So to do that, in EndNote 20, you would go to the File drop-down menu. Here on macOS, you would select Import from File. From this screen, you could import a single PDF or a single text file, or you could select a folder of PDFs to import. Now, here in Downloads, I know I have a folder, project articles here, that contain PDFs that I would like to attempt to import. We see that the project articles folder has two subfolders containing PDFs. And I want to make sure that EndNote tries to import everything in each one of the subfolders. So I'll select the overarching folder here, project articles. I'll press import. Oh, excuse me, there was actually one more setting that I needed to tweak, I believe. I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to go back to that screen once more. On macOS, there's a collapsible panel that we need to adjust. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these references. We're going to do that one more time. And let me delete the, yeah, perfect. All right, so now if we go back to File, Import, what I forgot to tweak before we pressed Import, let me just make sure we've got our appropriate folder selected, project articles, perfect. We wanted to actually expand options. This is something that's auto-expanded on Windows for whatever reason, part of macOS, whatever part of macOS causes this, it's a Mac behavior, but you'll at least once per session, you'll want to expand options. That's where you've got import options. This isn't set to PDF file or folder by default. This is actually by default set to EndNote library. And if you had that selected while you're importing PDFs, nothing would happen. So when you're importing PDFs, you either want PDF file or folder as your import option, or PDF folder as group set. And then that way, if we choose that, PDF folder as group set, it's not only going to import the PDFs, but it will make a group set structure for us based off of that folder structure on a hard drive. When you're importing PDFs, duplicates doesn't matter as much. If EndNote finds you already have a reference for a piece of literature you're trying to import, EndNote will just attach the PDF to that existing reference instead of duplicating it. And text translation is almost always set to no translation. It really depends on the region of the research you're working with and the language and character set it uses. But typically for English language research, this is going to be set to no translation. And now that we've configured our options, we can now press import. And just like last time, we're seeing an import window. What happens is EndNote is looking at each PDF, trying to examine the first two pages of text and the metadata of each PDF to try to find the article's DOI number. And if that's found, EndNote will query a partner database called Crossref or crossref.org, which is sort of a metadata search engine to find the reference details. EndNote will receive those details, and it will create new references for each piece of literature and attach the PDF to each one of those newly created references. So you might have noticed I just finished, as I was speaking, we imported 9 references from that project articles folder. EndNote made that folder structure, that group set structure for us automatically based on the folder names. We see that here. And for the majority of these items, the import was successful. We see that if I just close this reference panel here, we see that we've got fully populated references for it looks like 5 of the 9 here. And if we double click any one of the references, again, we can redisplay the reference panel. EndNote received all the metadata from crossref.org, populated the references here, and attached the PDF again at the same time. Now we see for a handful of these, all we're left with is sort of just a placeholder record. For a couple of these, 4 of the 9, we have no author or year information. It's just the title of the PDF in the title field surrounded by brackets. These are examples of PDFs where EndNote was not able to find that DOI number somewhere in the first 2 pages or in the metadata of the file. When that occurs, EndNote will still make a new entry in your library and attach the PDF to it, but that placeholder record is not really useful for citing in a research project. If you wanted to, you could go field by field. You could switch back to the PDF preview. You can go back to the Edit tab. You could start populating the reference if you'd like, and that would turn it into a usable reference you could cite in a research project in Microsoft Word. But sometimes I find it a little bit quicker to delete these placeholders, find them in an online database like Google Scholar that has an EndNote export option, and just manually attach the files to those handful of records. It's personal preference. It's going to be legwork either way. But usually, again, I usually find deleting a placeholder and recreating it by exporting from an online database usually is a little bit quicker than going field by field and trying to repurpose these placeholder references. So I did want to mention that. So we've just got a couple minutes left before the end of our time slot. We might go 5 or 10 minutes over. I will give an alert at the top of the hour in case anyone needs to sign off. I would like to just go, again, if we have another 5 or 10 minutes just to complete our lesson plan. If you do need to drop, we are recording this session, and you can review that recording at your convenience at a later time. But I did just want to quickly give you, like I said, a daily driver overview of the site while you write add-in for Microsoft Word. So when you install EndNote on your computer, EndNote will scan the drive for compatible versions of Microsoft Office, and so long as the compatible version is found, EndNote will load the site while you write add-in for Microsoft Word. The next time you launch Word on the ribbon, which is what Microsoft calls a series of tabs that run across the top of the document window, you'll see that there's the EndNote 20 tab. This is where you'll find all of the site while you write commands. There's a lot of power to these tools, like I was describing, but today we're really just going to be focusing on, like I said, the daily driver features, a couple of options for citation insertion. I want to show you how you can remove a citation if the need were to arise, and how you can change styles if you'd like. So again, a couple of options related to adding a citation, but each of the methods starts with you positioning your cursor where you would like to create a new in-text citation. So we see we've got our cursor flashing at the end of this first sample sentence here. With that cursor in place, we can click the little magnifying glass on the left side of the EndNote 20 tab. This is a shortcut for a command called Insert Citation. Clicking here will take us to a window called Find and Insert My References. This window may be blank the first time you access it, but after you've performed at least one search, the next time the window appears, it'll come up having performed the previous search automatically. That can be helpful if you're continuing to work on a project, but you can easily clear that previous search term like I just did here. We can input a search term from any active EndNote library, and if we press return on the keyboard, that will initiate the search here on Mac OS. We see that for the term parrot in our example library, there are 113 matching references in that library. The bottom left of the window shows a library label, which if you have more than one library open at once, you'll be able to tell which library the selected search result is located within to ensure you're citing the correct reference from the correct library. We just have the sample library open, so all 113 references are going to show from the sample library 20. And we see the author, year, and title. If that's not enough information, maybe you've got some ambiguous matches here, perhaps. You can look using the bottom panel. You can look at all of the underlying reference information from your EndNote library. So maybe if you had a couple of book chapter references and you couldn't see the chapter titles here, you can use this bottom panel to look at or reveal all of the underlying information. Whenever you're ready, you can either double click on a matching reference to insert it in your research project right where your cursor is flashing, or you can highlight it and press insert. Either way, I'll go ahead and press insert now. Now, we've got the default annotated style selected in Microsoft Word as well here, and that is, like I was mentioning, a sort of a generic author date citation format. The bibliography would include abstracts if they're available. This particular reference didn't have one. And again, this is really a generic format. Usually you would be required to change this to something, a different style that relates to a particular journal and their instructions for authors, or a standard set of formatting guidelines. So, there's a list of favorites right here on the style drop-down. Any style that you mark as a favorite in EndNote 20 will be on this quick list. You can also go to select another style like we did in EndNote, where we can look at all of the available output styles here. We could type a couple of letters to jump to a particular style on the list. We'll select Vancouver, let's say, press choose. All right, so this is a numbered style. We see that EndNote has just quickly changed the format of the in-text citation to now be a number. We see that the entry in the bibliography, its format has changed as well, and this is going to be the start of a numbered reference list. So that was a quick way to stay in Word while you're citing references from your active libraries. There's another method of citation creation called Insert Selected Citation, which involves switching back to your library to highlight references that you want to cite. If you want to use this other workflow, you would still start by positioning your cursor in Word where you want to create an in-text citation. Afterward, you need to go back to EndNote, so you can press Go to EndNote. A couple of ways to do this, but easiest, I'd say, is just click and go to EndNote. That'll take you right back to your active EndNote library. We see that's just come to the front of the screen here. We could select these references from the All References group, but if we've got our library organized in groups and group sets for different projects, that might make it a little bit easier to select a reference. So, we've got this avian intelligence group set here. Maybe we'll look at the parrots group where we have 29 references out of the total 353. From the reference list panel here, we can, read the details for the references that we've got. And whenever we're ready to add a reference, we just need to make sure that it's highlighted on the library window. So we can have one entry highlighted, make a standalone in-text citation. We can hold down Command as we click on a second or third reference, and we can make a grouped citation. Whenever you're ready, there are a couple of options to initiate this command, but I'd say the easiest way to trigger the Insert Selected Citation shortcut is this quotation mark symbol here. If we click on that, we're back in Word. We see where our cursor is flashing. We now have a grouped citation showing references 2-4, and we see the updated bibliography as well containing those references. Now, if you ever want to delete a citation, you don't want to just take it out by hand. The reason for that is that EndNote adds what are called field codes to your Word document. Field codes are sort of like a low-level programming language that Word provides for, and Word uses for various dynamic elements like page numbers, tables of contents, date and time, things like that. But third-party applications can utilize field codes as well, and EndNote uses those for the traveling library, which is the details pertaining to each reference cited in your document and information related to the style and how the references should be formatted. If you just delete what you see, you might not end up removing all of those hidden codes, and that could either cause the reference to reappear or it can cause error messages to start cropping up down the road. Just as an example, maybe I just wanted one reference in this second citation. I didn't want references 3 and 4. If I just tried to delete what I see, I might see that change take effect temporarily, but you might have noticed EndNote just reformatted the document automatically, and that change was reverted. So if you want to remove a citation, maybe you inserted it by mistake or the scope of your body of text changes as such where you no longer need to cite a particular reference, you would highlight that reference with your mouse. If it's a group citation, you would highlight the entire group. From here, you can go to Edit and Manage Citations. And then from this window here, we see all of the citations in the document. Whichever citation you highlight will be in focus automatically. If it's a group citation and it's one of the subsequent references you want to handle, you may still need to highlight it within that group. And like I was mentioning, we want to remove these as an example. So this reference from the first author whose surname is Funk, if we highlight that entry here, we can click the little ... menu on the right side of that entry, choose Remove Citation. It comes off this list. We'll do the same thing for the second Pepperbird, which is currently reference number 4. If we now that it's highlighted, click its menu, choose Remove Citation, press OK. Now that they're both off this Edit and Manage Citations window, we see that they come out of the text. And if that was the only time those references were cited in this Word document, those references would come out of the bibliography, and we see that that just occurred. So just to recap, that situation may never occur. You might never need to remove a citation, but it is good to know the appropriate method how to remove a citation if you ever need to. And just to quickly show you, we've added a couple of references using the Vancouver format, and if we need to quickly change styles, maybe we're going to attempt to prepare the project for submission to another publication, we could choose a different style. EndNote automatically updates the citation format, the bibliography at the same time. Same would apply, again, if you were setting footnote or EndNote references, EndNote can format those as well, and the style that you select would dictate how those references would appear.